Have you ever noticed that nobody warned you about the emotional cost of becoming successful? People tell you to study hard, work hard, build the business, get promoted, move abroad, become financially independent. But nobody tells you that success has a way of quietly changing your relationships. Not because you've changed, no, but because other people's expectations of you have. Now, there's a phrase many African families are already familiar with: the black tax. It's often used to describe the financial responsibility that falls on the person in the family who becomes successful. Now, that is the one, this person is the one paying the school fees, helping with rent, supporting the parents, building family homes, sending money whenever another emergency comes up. And, when most people talk about the black tax, that's actually where the conversation ends: money. But after listening to so many women over the years, I don't think money is actually the biggest story. I think it's simply the easiest part to see, because behind every bank transfer, there's usually another transaction taking place: an emotional one, a psychological one. And that's the conversation I want us to have today. Not because helping your family is wrong, it isn't. Many of us were raised, you see, to believe that when one person rises, everyone rises. There is something beautiful about that, honestly, because family matters, community matters, showing up for one another matters. So this isn't a conversation about becoming selfish. It's a conversation about something much quieter. What happens when success slowly changes the role you are expected to play in the lives of the people you love? A woman once said something to me that I haven't been able to forget. She looked at me and said, "Remi, it's not even the money anymore. It's my phone. Every time it rings, my body prepares for another problem." You see, that sentence stayed with me because your phone shouldn't make your shoulders tense. A WhatsApp notification shouldn't make your heart race. Before you've even answered the call, your mind is already trying to work out what has happened. Who needs money? Who's in trouble? What's gone wrong this time? When your nervous system starts preparing for responsibility before you've even answered the phone, the cost is no longer just financial, it's psychological. And that's when I realized that we'd been looking at the black tax through the wrong lens. We've been measuring what leaves women's bank accounts. Very few people have stopped to ask what else has been leaving: their peace, their emotional energy, their dreams, their ability to imagine a future that belongs to them. Now, let me tell you about another woman. For years, she poured money into building a family home back, in Nigeria. Every bonus went into that house, every pay rise, every sacrifice. While her friends were traveling and making memories, she was paying for roofing, for windows, for tiles. She kept saying, one day it will all be worth it. The understanding had always been the same, right? She was helping to build a family home. There would always be a room for her. After all, she'd paid for it. Then one year, she finally traveled back home. She walked into the house that she had spent years helping to build, and almost immediately, something felt wrong. People in the house, family members, started looking at one another. Someone was asking, where's she going to sleep? Another person, replied, maybe she can share with you now, Abi. Someone else, in the background interrupted, no, that room is occupied, it's for so so and so. She stood there quietly listening to people discuss where she should sleep. Inside the house she had spent years paying for, the room she had always believed was hers, she had received pictures, did not exist anymore. But the biggest heartbreak came later, when she discovered that although she had, always been told that the house was being built in her name as well, the paperwork had been completed without her name in it. Her name was not on the deed at all. Imagine carrying that for a moment. She was not crying because she had lost money. She was crying because she had realized that she had confused generosity with security. She had thought she was building a place where, she would always belong. Instead, she found herself feeling like a stranger, a visitor in a house she had helped pay for. Now, not every story ends like this. Many families are deeply loving. Many families are deeply grateful. And that's important to acknowledge. But story like this remind us why conversations about the black tax needs more nuance than simply saying help your family or cut everyone off. Life is rarely that simple. Because I don't think the greatest cost of black tax is the money women give away. I think it's what success quietly asks them to become. The provider, the problem solver, the emergency fund, the dependable one. And somewhere along the way, helping stops being something they do. It becomes who everybody believes that they are. And I think that's where the real conversation begins, because if the black tax isn't just costing women money, what is it really costing them? I think this is where many women begin to ask themselves a question they almost feel ashamed to admit. Am I becoming selfish? Because the moment you start feeling overwhelmed, the guilt arrives. You start questioning yourself. Maybe I should do more. Maybe I'm complaining. Maybe this is just what being successful looks like. But I don't think that's what is happening at all. I think something much more deeper is happening. You see, success doesn't just change your income, it changes your role. Not the role you have at work, the role you have inside your family. Think about every family you've ever known. Whether people realize it or not, everyone ends up playing a role. There's usually the peacemaker, the one who makes everybody laugh. There's usually the one always borrowing money. Then there's the one, everyone is always worrying about, the one everyone goes to for advice. Those roles are not usually assigned, they develop over the years. Then one person becomes successful. Suddenly, their role expands. They are no longer just the responsible daughter. They are now the responsible daughter with resources, the dependable sister with resources, the cousin who knows people, the one who can figure something out. And before long, people don't just come to you because they love you, they come to you because you represent possibility. Now, that's a lot for one person to carry. And I don't think most families even realize they are doing it. Now, imagine you are a parent who has struggled financially for years. You've worked hard, you sacrificed, then one of your children starts doing well. Of course, you feel relieved. Of course, you think maybe life will be a little easier now. That's a very human response. Or imagine you're a younger sibling who has watched your older sister overcome obstacle after obstacle. She always seems to find a way without even meaning to. You begin believing that she will always find a way, right? That's how expectation grows. Not always through entitlement, sometimes through familiarity, sometimes through hope, sometimes through survival. And this is why I don't want this conversation to become my family's toxic, because sometimes they are not. Sometimes they are simply responding to the role that has quietly developed over time. But here's where wisdom becomes so important. Understanding why someone behaves the way they do is not the same as accepting behavior that harms you. Those are two different things. There are families who are deeply appreciative when you say, I can't help this time. They are disappointed, yes, but they understand. They ask how you're doing. They care about your well being. They don't make your love conditional on what you can provide. Then there are relationships where every boundary becomes an argument. Every no becomes, so you've forgotten where you came from, you've forgotten the sacrifices. Every success is treated as public property. Every decision has to be justified. That is different, not because people ask for help, but because your value has quietly become attached to your usefulness. And that's never a healthy foundation for any relationship. Now, it also reminds me of another woman I spoke to, right? For years, she had dreamed of going back to uni. Every September, she'd look at application forms. Every September, she'll tell herself next year. But every year, something happened. School fees, a hospital bill, a younger relative who needed help, another family emergency. Life just kept happening. One evening, she sat down and added up how much she had spent helping other people over the years. She wasn't angry. She wasn't even regretful. She just became very quiet. Then she said something that has never left me. Remi, I don't actually know what I want anymore. That sentence broke my heart. Not because she had lost ambition, but because she had spent so many years responding to everybody else's needs that she had stopped listening to her own. And I wonder how many women watching me right now recognize themselves in that. Not because you stopped dreaming, but because you have become so busy surviving everybody else's emergencies that your own dreams have gone quiet. And maybe that's one of the greatest hidden costs of always being the dependable one. Not that people need you, but that somewhere along the way, you stopped asking yourself what you needed. So if that's what really happening, how do we change it without becoming bitter? How do we remain generous without slowly disappearing ourselves? Because I don't think the answer is to love your family less. I think the answer is to learn a different way of carrying the people you love. I think one of the biggest misconceptions we have is that the only choices are these: either you give everything or you become selfish. But life is rarely that black and white. There is another way. You can love your family deeply and still have boundaries. You can be generous and still plan for your own future. You can care about other people's well being without becoming permanently responsible for it. I know that sounds simple, but living it is much harder because when you've spent years being the dependable one, something begins to happen. You stop asking, is this mine to carry? You simply pick it up automatically, almost without thinking. That's why I don't think healing starts with saying no. I think healing actually starts with asking better questions. Instead of asking, who needs me? Try asking, what is mine to carry? Those are two completely different questions. One is driven by guilt, the other is guided by wisdom. Now, here's another question that's changed the way I think about this. Just because I have the capacity to solve a problem does not automatically make it my responsibility. Think about that. If you are the only doctor in your family, it doesn't mean that every medical problem is yours, Abi. If you are the only lawyer, it doesn't mean every legal battle belongs to you. If you are the one who's financially stable, it also doesn't automatically mean every financial crisis is yours to absorb. Capacity and responsibility are not the same thing. And I think many successful women have confused the two for so long that they no longer know where one ends and the other begins. Another thing I'd encourage you to think about is this: don't make decisions in the middle of guilt. Guilt is a terrible financial advisor. When we are feeling guilty, we often say yes because we're trying to silence an emotion, not because we've made a wise decision. Sometimes the most loving response isn't an immediate yes. Sometimes it's, let me think about it. Give me a day. Let me look at my finances first. That pause, you see, is very powerful because it gives wisdom a chance to speak before guilt does. I also think generosity deserves a plan, not because generosity should be limited, but because exhaustion shouldn't become your lifestyle. If supporting your family is important to you, decide what that looks like before the next emergency arrives. What can you realistically give without placing your own life on hold? Not what guilt demands, not what other people expect, what is genuinely sustainable, because generosity that destroys the giver eventually becomes impossible to sustain. Now, I want to say something to the woman who has been feeling guilty throughout this entire video. The woman who is thinking, but my family really do need me. I believe you. Sometimes they do. Sometimes illness changes everything. Sometimes jobs are lost. Sometimes unexpected crises happen. Real life happens, right? This isn't about pretending those situations don't exist. No. It's about recognizing the difference between supporting someone through a difficult season and becoming permanently responsible for the direction of their life. One is compassion, the other is a role that no single person was ever designed to carry. And perhaps the distinction we've been missing. I keep coming back to something one woman said to me. She said, I don't know who I am when nobody needs me. I don't think she realized how profound that sentence was, because that's the real cost. When your identity becomes so wrapped up in rescuing other people, rest starts to feel irresponsible. Spending money on yourself feels wasteful. Pursuing your own dreams feels selfish. Not because any of those things are wrong, but because somewhere along the way, you started believing your value came from being needed. If you've recognized yourself in that, I want you to hear me carefully. You are more than what you provide. You are more than the problems you solve. You are more than the money you send. The people who love you should not only experience your generosity, they should also want your well-being. And if you've spent years pouring into everyone else, I hope this conversation gives you the permission you need to ask a question you may not have asked in a very long time. What kind of life am I trying to build? Not next year, not when everybody else's problems disappear. Now, because your life matters now. Your dreams matter now. Your peace matters now. The goal was never to stop carrying the people you love. The goal is to make sure that you do not disappear while carrying them. And maybe that's what we need to redefine, not the black tax, success. Because I don't think success is measured only by how many people you can take care of. I think real success is being able to care for the people you love without abandoning the person you've been entrusted to care for as well. You. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If this conversation resonated with you, I'd really love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Not because every family is the same, because they are not, but because I think the more honest we become about these conversations, the more compassion we'll have, both for ourselves and for the people we love. And if you know someone who has quietly become everybody else's safety net, send them this video, not to make them angry, but to remind them that they deserve a life too. I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.